something else going on right now in Virginia. You had the people of Virginia decided that they were tired of the direction of the school system across the Commonwealth. And that was the key reason why Governor Glenn Youngkin and company came into office, right? Because when you get people like Terry McAuliffe saying that parents shouldn't have a say in their kids and their education, yeah, the option is obvious, right? You go with the other guy, the guy who says, yeah, parents should be involved. And that's not a partisan point. That's a completely, it should be a bipartisan point. It should be not related to politics at all, other than this guy needs to be governor in order to safeguard this obvious thing. So Youngkin comes into office, and he also addresses one of the key points that's part of this conversation, which is you can't have the schools transing children. They should not be in the gender meddling business. In fact, parents should know everything that's happening in those schools. Everything. Again, an obvious point, and it's sad it has to be said. And so recently, the Youngkin administration released new guidance that says to the school systems how they handle issues around gender confusion, and that you can only use facilities and play on sports teams that are associated with your actual sex. That's it. Now several school districts are in open revolt. There's an open insurrection going on from left-wing school districts in the Commonwealth. For more on this, I want to bring in Tiffany Polifko now. She's a Loudoun County School Board member, and she joins us on the phone. Tiffany, great to have you with us.
Hi, Vince. Thank you so much for having me on this afternoon.
So I know I've seen declarations from Arlington, Fairfax, Prince William, that they're flipping the parents of Virginia the bird. They're going to go with whatever they want to do with this gender policy. What is happening in Loudoun County?
Well, so currently we are in a situation where we have decided that these model policies are going to go through our subcommittees just like any other policy does. So we're going to put that through our, it'll go through our student services subcommittee. We'll reach out, get community feedback, bring that back to the table. It'll come forward to the entire board as an information item and then for action. So it's going to take us a little while before we actually get to the meat on the bones.
Right, and so that's why I'm seeing a bunch of headlines that says Loudoun County's undecided. But what I thought was going on here is that when the governor's administration releases model policies, by law, the school district's policies have to conform to those model policies, don't they?
Well, Vince, here, I'm going to tell you something in the audience that might surprise some people. A policy like this does not have any teeth because it is not law. And this is a scary thought when you have people thinking that we can just rubber stamp these policies. I'll tell you right now, I cannot give my rubber stamp of approval just because Governor Youngkin says parents matter and throws out a few freedom crumbs, right? And here's what I'm going to tell you. This is so important for people to understand. And I did the rush to judgment myself. I was a little bit guilty of this last month. I saw when the policies came out, I read through them quickly and thought, okay, hey, what's not to like about this, right? We're going to uphold First Amendment rights. We're going to make sure that the 14th Amendment is honored. We're going to make sure that parents have a say. They're the ones who should be directing the care, education, and upbringing of their children. But once I dove in further a few weeks ago with a little bit of help from Virginia for Children First, their website is VAF as in Frank, CF.org, and they hold elected officials accountable. People need to know that there are two very important things in this policy that they have to consider. Number one, school boards need to ask questions about what does it look like when parents are going to have to opt their children out of sharing a restroom with students who identify as transgender. Yes, that is written in the model policies. What is that going to look like? Are schools prepared to do that? Are they prepared to hand out opt-outs and make them available to parents?
Okay.
To my understanding at this point, we're not there. Number two, here's another scary thing. Back in September 2022, when this first came out, if you recall, before it went through all the public comment, the month-long public comment period, this model policy cited a very important case, Troxel v. Granville, which said it was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court and said that parents right to raise their children are perhaps the oldest of the fundamental liberty interests recognized by the court.
Yes.
Now, okay, in July of 2023, when the revised policies came out, what does it say under that section? It references Code of Virginia 22.1-2721B, prohibiting parental contact where a student is at imminent risk of suicide related to parental abuse or neglect. That is something that should scare every single parent, because we see what's happening right now all across the country with the notion that if you don't affirm a child, they're going to commit suicide. And if a child comes in and says, I'm suicidal because my parents aren't going to accept the position that I'm in, or they're not going to accept the fact that I identify as trans.
Right.
What is that going to mean? So my whole point in this is board members, parents, you cannot sit back and clap your hands just because these model policies came out. I mean, we're like in a situation here where we have been starved for so long.
Yes.
For good governance, right? Because of what we had to deal with under Governor Northam. It's giving a starving man a cracker and making him think that it's a steak. That's where we're at. This policy has no teeth unless Governor Youngkin backs it up with an executive order at this point. I mean, and this is why school systems will say, well, we're just not going to adopt it. We're just going to buck it because we don't have to, because guess what? When former Attorney General Mark Herring, his assistant AG back in 2021 said there is no enforcement mechanism within the model policy statute. No punishment for a school board if they fail to pass inclusive policies as the model policy guides. So is the state going to come after school systems? Are they going to come after the school board's funding if they don't adopt it? No.
There's a lot of, you're saying a lot of important things here, and let me add one other thing to your concerns about the model policy as presented by the Youngkin administration. I said it when it came out, and I'll say it again now. The idea that obviously parents' rights are preeminent, but those rights don't include abusing your own children. So the state policy says that parents can decide whether or not their kid is a different gender. That doesn't make any sense. Abusing your child is not on the menu of things that a parent has to have in the school system. And so that is another, Mack truck size loophole in this transgender policy. But I want to focus on something you said a moment ago. You said that the school districts can kind of do what they want here. They don't have to follow the policy. But the law specifically says, the language of the law specifically says that each school board shall adopt policies that are consistent with, but maybe more comprehensive than, the model policies. So that exists in the statute, Tiffany Polifko, meaning it is absolutely the law that they have to adopt the model policies. They can even expand upon them if they like. But what you're saying is there's no enforcement mechanism? There's no way to punish them if they fail to do it?
Well, individuals could punish them. So individuals could come forward and sue the school districts. But what I'm telling you is that my understanding is that based on where we're at, there is no mechanism in the model policy statute to punish a school board if they fail to adopt those model policies. And that's why you saw a very small, you saw a small percentage of schools back in 2021 that chose not to adopt those policies. They did not adopt Governor Northam's policies, and they, lo and behold, didn't lose their funding.
You've also got the state sports body that's in charge of running all the sports leagues across the state. They're saying none of this applies to them, and they're going to let boys continue to play girls' sports wherever boys would like to do that, apparently.
Yes, that's correct. And what concerns me as well here in this situation is that my understanding is that as a school board, we cannot supersede VHSL. So we cannot say, even if as the school board makes this decision to either approve or reject these model policies, we cannot supersede VHSL and say, well, we simply just will not allow boys and girls to compete on the same sports teams, because VHSL has already dug their heels in. They drew their line in the sand and they said, we're not doing that. We're just going to let things continue as they have been.
So we put out a request to have Governor Youngkin on to talk about this, and obviously that hasn't happened yet. I hope to hear from him soon. Have you heard from him at all, Tiffany Polifko? I don't mean just you personally, but I haven't. I don't see anything from Governor Youngkin on what he's going to do about all of these school districts in open revolt.
Well, listen, you know what, Vince? He's been on Fox News. He's gone on news channels and expressed his displeasure with Fairfax County not adopting the model policies. There's been a letter that's been sent out by Dr. Coons, the superintendent of public instruction here in Virginia. And in that letter that she sent out, the memo that she sent out is the same memo that essentially that James Lane put out, who was the former superintendent of public instruction back in 2021. Same thing. You must adopt these policies. You have to adopt these policies. But what people are not realizing is that there will be no consequences for not doing so unless the governor backs it up. He's the only one at this point that can do that, and he could do that by an executive order.
Which would do what? It would strip funding. What would the executive order do?
Well, it would give the policy teeth. So right now the policy really has no teeth. It really, like I said, if the school systems choose not to adopt it,
yes,
they're not going to lose their funding. Individuals could come forward and sue the school system. But how did that work out in 2021? I mean, we saw what happened in 2021. Here's the thing. All the school systems that wanted to adopt it, we have to do it because that's what the governor said. That was their rationale. Well, right. That's what the governor said. This was Governor Northam's direction.
I remember.
So this is what we have to do, right? Yes. And now we're seeing the exact opposite for people who don't favor Governor Youngkin's politics. But I'm not playing the political game here. I'm playing the fundamental right game, which is not a game, right? These are fundamental rights. Parental rights are so fundamental they cannot be given or taken away. And if anyone thinks that Governor Youngkin's model policies are going to give them their rights back, they are sorely mistaken. Governor Youngkin cannot give parents their rights.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. But he can protect them, and he should rise.
He can protect them, and I certainly hope that he will do that. I certainly hope that he will do that because that is one of the primary things he was elected to do, and elected officials need to be held accountable.
No question. Tiffany Polifko, is there anybody else on the Loudoun County School Board who sounds or thinks like you do?
So, sometimes I get a little bit of help up there on the dais. Sometimes, a lot of times I'm just by myself, and that's okay because when I vote on principle, and I don't mind being alone. I'm fine eating at the table by myself.
Amen. Well, you're an inspiration. Thank you, Tiffany Polifko, Loudoun County School Board. Really appreciate your time today and your assessment of what's going on in the Commonwealth. Thank you.